back in your life like a video assistance review system to make you wonder if a worldwide competition is corrupt or not. This is the Fantasy Underbosses here on the Golden Ignorance Podcast Network. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time you are watching or listening to our show here on YouTube. Thank you for making us part of your day. It is episode 2 of the Fantasy Underbosses. I am Joe Winkle, joined by our good friend, as always, the Don Corleone. We are here to discuss some more fantasy football. We are recording this on July 7th. We have just dropped episode 1. We are dropping episode 2, and we are on the roll every week, going to be releasing episodes as we inch closer and closer to the start of the NFL season. Don, how are we doing on this lovely day? The heat is finally broke. The world football is coming to a head as we sit here and talk about American football on this beautiful day. How are you, friend?
I'm doing good, man. The more and more I kind of start diving into this, the more and more I'm kind of enjoying the fact that football is just 50 something days away. So,
Yeah, we're recording this the day after the U.S. team lost. And listen, I'm not in the mindset other than recording these where I'm like, all right, I'm ready for football to be here because the World Cup has been incredible. However, last night was like, all right, I could use some Thursday night like Jags, Colts or something right now to get over the sadness.
could use some Thursday night Tennessee New York Jets type of beat.
Exactly. Yeah, I could use that after getting my heart ripped out by some dudes by a team who didn't wear any of their actual real colors in their country's flag yesterday.
Funny enough, where the U.S. men's national team season ends, the team that's called the Patriots start their year off in Seattle. So it's a fun full circle moment.
Exactly. That's where the NFL season will. I guess yeah, that is the first game. So that is where the NFL season will begin. That is a nice little, just rising tides moment. So today, what we're gonna do, we're gonna start getting into. Last week we, excuse me, last week, uh, we were able to get our first episode out. We were discussing some new faces, new places. Uh, did our rookie draft, which we posted to our socials. Next week or this week, what we're going to be doing is our first divisional preview, and of course, what we're going to do at the start of most of our shows is a little bit of some buy and some sell. So let's get into this without any further ado. Let's go training camps or early training camp storylines heading into training camp. Done. We'll kick it off with this: the Cleveland Browns quarterback battle. Obviously, this was a huge, not a huge topic, but kind of just a lingering one coming into the offseason. What do you want to? Where do you want to start with this? As Shedeur Sanders, Deshaun Watson, the battle of mid, as some might say, heading into the offseason.
Yeah, and I mean it's kind of intriguing because when you look at their depth chart of Jerry Judy, the seasoned vet, and then the two rookies of Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston as your wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3, you kind of just sit there and go, I mean, that doesn't kind of matter who it is, but it does for fantasy purposes. I think for me, I just think at this point in time, man, I don't see a world where Shadur starts right now. I think he has the legs to get going and could, give Deshaun Watson a run for his money. But I do think that Deshaun's going to be the starting quarterback to start off the year. Now, will he be at the end of the year? Probably not. But based off of how I'm drafting, I'm kind of leaning on the Deshaun Watson side. And once we start, dived into the AFC North a little bit, I'll kind of explain who I like out of the four potential options between the three wide receivers and the tight end um, for receiving purposes. But right now, I'd say it's Deshaun Watson's to lose.
I think so as well. I think Watson will start the season, and I do think that makes Jerry Judy a lively option in fantasy. Now, another guy too, like he had a good year last year before he got injured was Judkins, but obviously he got hurt at the end of the season, and then if I'm not mistaken, he had some. He had some off the field stuff as well, I believe. So
Yeah, but I think that's taken care of.
it might have been taken care of, correct? So in general, that's always an option. But Judy, I think, could have with Watson. I like their abilities more with Watson because Sanders is just a bit of it's a roller coaster. You don't want to really buy in anything, but with them if he's the quarterback. So right now, just in general for the Browns quarterback situation, the Browns in general are a massive sell for me, but we'll see as we get closer if they actually have anything definitive. Maybe we can find some ways to navigate as we get closer to the year. Next up, this one's got a little more juice to it. The running back one battle for the New York Giants. Don, uh, Cam Scatabo and Tyro Tracy. The this Scatabo in short order last year was fantastic and just kind of blew up. I know this personally because he kind of saved the first third of my season in a league, and then he got hurt, and we had to kind of ride it out. But Tracy as the other option, their offense kind of stuttering. Scatabo was, I think, probably the more explosive. Where are you at with these two? And do you think that if it is Scatabo, could he be a true running back? One, what are your thoughts?
I mean, with the injury, it kind of defeats the purpose. I feel like for taking him for where he is because I believe he's let's see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. He's going as RB22 in most drafts right now. The only thing that kind of would point me in the direction of Scatabo is when he was playing last year, right? He was the big red zone target for them, rushing wise. 5 rushing touchdowns inside the red zone. He logged 8 carries inside the 5, secured 4 touchdowns there. He also has 4 red zone targets with 3 receptions and 2 receiving touchdowns. So when he was playing, he was the big red zone guy for the Giants. Now with Tyrone Tracy, kind of feels more of like the John Harbaugh esque type running back, if that makes any sense with his style of offense. But right now, going into camp, I would say it is Scatabo's to lose. I'm just a little wary for now until we see how he looks in training camp on how he does after that injury.
I think that's fair as well. I think Scatabo is a guy that you are definitely worth going after in drafts where it's like, okay, like this is a spot, and then it's kind of a. I don't think it's a huge. I don't think it's a massive risk. More of a reward. Tracy's a guy I personally would stay away from, but just because we've seen Tracy, we've seen Scatabo, so that's kind of where I'm at with those two. So I would be buying Scatabo not as a high, he's more of a it's more of an upside pick than a no doubter, obviously. So there is a bit of risk, but depending on where you would draft him, but also too, it could be a bit of a luxury pick depending on let's say you've got a good let's say you're in a keeper league, right? And you got to steal back from the prior year, or if Scatabo could be a good keeper option for you and that could be one heck of a little reward you can chip in on. So I think those are some avenues that you can kind of look at with the Giants running back room. Moving on here, we go to another team in the Northeast, a team that Don is very fond of, the New England Patriots. It was a roller coaster last season for the running back room, buying or selling the running back room for the New England Patriots, Trey Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson.
I think the big thing is the split carries. I think we're going to get that regardless. Looking right now, where you can get them in drafts, you can get Travion in between round 4 and round 5, and Ramondre in round 7, round 8. I think just based off the value alone, I kind of like Travion. The only issue is usually what we see in these year 2 running backs, like compared to their rookie season, what the workload looks like, right? And when you're a rookie running back and you were taking in the second round to help be a part of the workload, right? You kind of see them in year 2 develop a little bit and kind of take that step ahead. I think Henderson has big playability. I just think that in Josh McDaniels' offense, Ramondre Stevenson's going to get touches. I wouldn't be surprised either if Jim Miller starts getting touches as well down the stretch. So I'm gonna buy. There's no true RB1 still. I think it's still run back by committee, but I just think that Travion has the bigger explosive play upside than Ramondre.
I agree with you there. I buy that. I buy that as a theory, not even a theory, just as an opinion and like and a fact. Can I throw out a little hottish take that I want your opinion on that I literally just came up with? Is
Yep.
Josh McDaniel's skill players as volatile? Not as volatile, but kind of in. It's like a distant cousin of volatility to Sean Payton's skill players in their offense. Where it's like you can draft these guys, but good luck of them being consistent.
I think in the receiver room is a little different because I think that they currently have a legit number one,
Yeah,
and I
that's
think
fair.
Drake will hone in on that. I just think running backs, when you look, he's never had a guy be a workhorse in his
Hmm.
offense, no matter what. So I think yes and no. I can see the comparison that you're going with. I just think that like when we're looking at the bigger picture here, what is something that you're going to offer us in order for us to be successful? Ramondre is the like grounded pound. He'll go downhill at 100 miles an hour, no problem. Trevor Henderson just has the ability to uh just take one big burst and then he's gone. Like I think that's the difference. And having that just makes your offense that much more efficient. And in the 11 and the 12 personnel, it makes it that much better for you to have. So I think that because McDaniel likes to run 11 and 12 a lot, that the split backfield is more of a benefit, I would say.
I think that's a good take. That's a good take. All right, last or no, two more. Next up, Bears true running back one. Last year was a revelation year for the Bears. They came out of nowhere to be well. Justin, they no, I don't know if I would say, maybe you could say out of nowhere. I don't know, with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams and this offense that was multi-layered and balanced and had an incredibly explosive run game. DeAndre Swift and Kyle Mungai. So, question here for the group is Bears true running back one. Do you have a certain way you're leaning on this, or do you expect another season where both Swift and Monungai are, you know, getting their opportunities to shine?
I mean, if you think about it, they were both top 30 running backs last year,
Hmm.
right? And that's with Monungai getting like kind of a diminished workload early on. I think a full season of Monungai, I think, helps develop this offense. And then I get to the point where like this is Ben Johnson's Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery esque type of backfield. So I like the split here. I think with Monungai, I think you get more of the touchdown upside, which I think is huge. DeAndre Swift last year, I believe had a career high in touchdowns in 9. His second year of over 1,000 yards rushing. But again, DeAndre Swift is a consistent top 20 running back in PPR. He's been top 20 in all but one season in his short NFL career so far. Monungai was RB30 last year. I think he can build off that. And again, it goes back to the rookie, right?
Hmm.
Theory that I have where if you're a rookie running back and you see your workload increasing a little bit more, you should slowly see yourself getting up there. So I think fantasy purposes, I think they both have a chance to finish in the top 20 this year. I just think DeAndre Swift is a good safety option for Caleb Williams out of the backfield. But in the 11 and the 12 personnel, I feel like Kyle Monungai is going to get a lot more carries this year for the Bears. So I think, and you're getting him probably in about 2 to 3 rounds later than DeAndre Swift. I don't think it's a bad value. So right now, I don't think there's a true RB1 there. I just think that we're going to see a lot of both of these guys this year.
And I think too, so it has to be accounted for when you just look at the regular numbers. Last year, the Bears had the worst running back room in the league for the first like month of the season.
Exactly,
Like
because they weren't playing Kyle Monungai.
and it just took a while for them to kind of figure it out. And then Monungai slowly started to get touches, and then he really kind of blew up when Swift got hurt after the Washington game. Uh, they go to uh, they go to Cincinnati, and Monungai gets like 25 carries, has a huge game, and then obviously the last 6 weeks of the season, they both kind of have their moments. They have the huge game in Philadelphia, and both have some really key play moments throughout the year. But I do agree with you. Like I think both are very high level fantasy options. I don't think they're not in a spot where I would be like, I want to draft one and then have another as a handcuff, because I just don't think that's it's a little bit of a coin flip on who's who's going to have the huge numbers, the bigger numbers each week. It might just be who actually finds the end zone, you know. But I do think Swift is a more reliable option to be catching passes, that might even out with Monangai, who might find one or two more touchdowns in the full season.
Don't forget, when he had over 20 carries last year, he was a top 10. Kyle Monangai was a top 10 fantasy running back, and that happened twice. And of course, two, last year, he only got over 50% of the snaps in two of those games, and he finished in the top 25 in both of those. I think if he's going to get consistent 50 plus snap percentage, it's the usage is going to go up. So I'm excited for it.
I think personally, as a Bears guy, I do think Monangai is better than Swift. Though I ate a lot of crow in my own Swift takes last year. Even though he still sometimes made me want to ram my head through a door, he had a huge. I never could have imagined him being as good as he was. But in general, I think the Bears got a pretty good situation and a win-win if you end up you're finding yourself having to draft one of those players. Who would have thought if you would have told me last year in July, hey, you can willingly draft a Bears running back in the top whatever, I would have said you're crazy. You have a better chance of drinking bleach and it tasting good. Next up, final one, Jalen Warren's as Pittsburgh's true 3-down back.
I don't see it. I think them moving on from Gainwell and bringing in Rico Dowdle, I think puts a wrench into that. Because even last year, when you're looking at it, right, I like he was getting majority 60% of the snaps, and the only time he played 80% of the snaps was against New England, and he finished in the top 20 because he had 5 catches for 34 yards. Right, so in a PPR league, that helps. The biggest thing is for him is when he got the carries last year and he could get over 100 yards, he was consistent. Like he was consistent finishing in the top 10 because he was finishing up high. Like the week against Detroit, we're helping people win fantasy playoff matches because he finished with 143 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Like he's going to be very touchdown dependent. And I think with Rico, especially coming off back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, I think the upside's there for him. And I do think that there's a chance that, you know, he ends up halfway through the year being the consistent RB1 for this team. I do think the roles can reverse. So I'm not buying Jalen Warren right now. Training camp could lean me in the different direction, but right now I think Rico is the clear option. And plus, you can get Rico in 2 rounds later than him. So I think I think it's dumb not to have Rico Dotto on your fantasy team coming up.
And I don't. Yeah, and it's another different situation than the Bears, where it's your draft. There's two draftable running backs. Though, if you're drafting one of the Bears running backs, I think you can go into the season potentially being like, "Hey, I can constantly have these guys in my starting lineup." Dowdle and Warren, at least for me right now, it's like, okay, they're probably on the outside looking into the starting lineup, but they're one of your top bench players. I agree with you with Dowdle being above Jalen Warren, just because the one thing that I like the most when it comes to this conversation, Dowdle has experience with McCarthy, and you got to think them going out to get him, it's a McCarthy pick. McCarthy had him in Dallas, and Dowdle had obviously the huge blow up last year in the second half of the season with Carolina. One of the stars for them, kind of in their little turnaround throughout the year to become division champions and make the postseason. Uh, just an impressive or impressive year from him, and an opportunity, I think, this year to continue that kind of rise on a better team with a good offensive line. And who knows, uh, maybe he can have a bit more of a outburst, or kind of maybe somewhat of a repeat of last season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, it is time now for our first of 8 total, because that's how many divisions there are, divisional previews. We are going to start with everyone's favorite quirky division, the AFC South. We are going to start with the Indianapolis Colts. This is a team that has some question marks coming into the season. Daniel Jones and his health, which we're going to talk about. They move on from some receivers. They sign Alec Pierce to a large contract. They of course have one of the most dynamic options in fantasy football in Jonathan Taylor at the running back position. Well, we're not going to probably talk as much about him today, but we're going to go through all of these teams and ask some glaring questions, and we'll start here, Don, with this. Do you trust anybody other than Tyler Warren as a receiving option? We mentioned them getting Alec Pierce. They lose Michael Pittman, so Pierce, you got to think, is coming into the season as a guy that is a candidate to be overdrafted, probably. Where do you see this? Give us your take on the receiving options for the Indianapolis Colts coming
Well,
into
I
the year.
think I think obviously Tyler Warren having over 110 targets last year was essential for him. He's just such a focal point of this offense, and he's going to be consistently a focal point of this offense. My biggest issue is that last year, if you remember, right, and you're taking Alec Pierce whenever you're taking Alec Pierce, right? Right now, Alec Pierce, I believe, is going as like he's going as like a top 100 fantasy player, which he's not. He finished last year as wide receiver 28 in PPR. Um, Again, a guy who's never had 50 catches in the season, but he had over 1,000 yards last year and 6 touchdowns. If you remember, right, his big weeks, he finished as wide receiver 1 at the end of the year, where he had 4 catches for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. Both of his multiple touchdown games that he had was in the playoffs, and he was a top 5 fantasy receiver. Other than that, there were 3 times last year where he was a top 20 um, fantasy fantasy wideout, all with Daniel Jones. I will add, but it's just a big playability. He's not a consistent start, and then if you go down the list, Josh Downs isn't going to be a consistent start. Nick Westbrook, Keenan, come on, they don't have the consistency in the receiver, so I'm not trusting anybody besides Tyler Warren coming into this year. I think again, Tyler Warren's going to lead the team in targets with over 100. He's going to be a good check down guy for Daniel Jones, um, depending on the health, which we'll get to in a second.
So you don't think Alec Pierce, even without a guy like Pittman now, without any other true option, you don't think he has the possibility to have kind of an upswing in production or route tree, or do you think he's still going to be just an insane boomer bust type of player?
Well, because now think of it now, right? If he's your wide receiver 1, he's going to face the better of the defensive backs. So he's going to get Derek Stingley twice. He's going to get um, Jacksonville's top guy. He's going to get Tennessee's top guy. And like, not for nothing, they're no slouches, right? So I personally don't like him because of that. And again, it's just big player bust. I don't trust him consistently in the route tree to get open and be consistent for them.
Or in his case, how much of the route tree is he actually going to run?
Exactly.
So, like, how is he even going to be able to run some of the route tree? Here's my question for you that I want to pose with Tyler Warren real quick. Where can we expect him as product? Like, I guess it's kind of. We'll talk about Daniel Jones here in a minute, but his season kind of. I wouldn't say tailspin, but he really, a lot. His big performances are all pre Daniel Jones injury. His best game after the Daniel Jones injury, like here are his numbers after Daniel Jones gets hurt. He goes and he got hurt. Jones got hurt, I believe, in the Jacksonville game, if I'm not mistaken. Correct.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So he goes two catches, 15 yards in that Jags game. Then goes 3 for 19, 3 for 30, 5 for 43, and 5 for 26. He didn't score a touchdown he didn't score a touchdown from in the month of December onward. So the question I'm looking at now for him is, you know, does Tyler Warren, was why does that happen? If there's any Daniel Jones worries, is this just going to be a stay away team outside of in anything passing game? Is Warren going to come into this year with a bit more consistency? That's the thing that I'm curious about.
Yeah, but I mean, also too, like when you think about it, right? He was consistent with Daniel Jones, and when we'll talk, and I'll just transition into Daniel Jones while we do this,
Of course,
because like Daniel Jones pre buy was talking about potentially being an MVP candidate because the Colts were on fire. Daniel Jones after the bye turned into the Daniel Jones that we were accustomed to, and that's the problem. I think the Tyler Warren, no matter what, I just think he's going to like you're drafting him as a top 5 tight end, right? Based off of production, based off of point value, he's gonna get over. He's gonna get a shit ton of targets. It's going to happen. I think even with Daniel Jones not 100% right now, I think that Tyler Warren still you can get him at a decently good value. Now there are other tight ends that I like, and over the course of the next month or so, when we start diving into more and more about specific teams, I'll tell you the tight ends that maybe I like a little bit better. But I'm saying if you're a traditional guy and you like to go two running backs, two wide receivers, and your tight end within the first 5, I would take Tyler Warren within the first 5 rounds.
I definitely agree because I do think too he has potential of getting maybe some running touchdowns. I think that I always loved the different ways that they would use him.
He also has the potential to throw you a touchdown. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
there's multiple avenues that you can go down with Tyler Warren.
So back to Daniel Jones, do we think he has the ability to get back to the QB1 status he was at? Obviously, we talked about pre and post bye. Then he has the injury. How much do we think the injury is going to hamper him?
A lot, I think. I think I think a lot, and it's going to get to the point where you're going to potentially have to look and see if Anthony Richardson is going to help save your season or not. So,
Oh baby, it's fantasy preseason when we're busting out Anthony Richardson takes, baby. Not just you and me, but just us as a nation.
I mean, I just think that the big thing for me is if he can produce like he was, I think Jonathan Taylor's fantasy value goes through the roof. My biggest worry is when you're looking at where you have to take Jonathan Taylor to get him right now in the month of July, which is the first round. I do not feel confident enough taking Jonathan Taylor in the first round due to the lack of consistent threats that the Indianapolis offense has to give you. So I think that's my biggest problem. Is not only does he affect himself, he's going to affect those around him.
I think that's a fair point too, because if you're able to have balance, then Taylor can turn around and be the best running back. I mean, where did he end up finishing last year?
Jonathan Taylor was last year running back 4 in PPR, 2.5 point PPR. Because again, tied career high in touchdowns. He had 18. He had a career high in receptions, which he's going to need again. Um, average 4.9.1 yards per carry. The only issue I have is it's another year where he's got over 300 carries. Like it was the second most carries that he's had. And honestly, it was his best fantasy season since he finished his RB1 in 2021. So I think that's a little bit worrying to me too. And again, where you're drafting him right now, it's first round. Like he's within the top 10 fantasy pick. I do not feel confident enough taking him right now.
The wide receiver returning to the team, I just want to quickly throw this out there. That is actually the highest reception getter from last year is Josh Downs. Obviously, we've mentioned how Alec Pierce is. I wouldn't call him a gadget player, but he's definitely got his skill set. Um, Not a big route tree guy. Downs, when we eventually, I'm not trying to spoil our future content, but when we get to the our fingers working section of the content season, could you see yourself putting a guy like Josh Downs as a sleeper candidate? Or a breakout type guy? Any other guys you want to mention about on the Colts before we move on?
No, just because I don't trust the quarterback play is going to be too inconsistent for me right now. I think Josh Downs is a guy you can get in like week 4 or 5 if he starts off hot. Like I don't think you have to draft him.
Right, like you can imagine yourself a month into the season. We're leading off a waiver segment talking about Josh Downs just had back-to-back games with 8 catches and 70 plus yards and a touchdown.
Yep.
Where can we fit him in as a guy on our bench? I like that. All right, moving on. This will be a team that is a lot more fun to talk about with options that are more consistent. It is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are coming off of a 13-win season,
Mm-hmm.
who are coming off of an upsetting performance in the postseason where they just fell short. However, this team is potentially ripe to have another big year. Liam Cohen as the head coach, absolutely unlocking this offense, unlocking Trevor Lawrence, and that's where we're going to start. Trevor Lawrence had an amazing season last year. He was another, we mentioned, MVP level type player. He was definitely around that category. He was top five candidate or top five in fantasy at the quarterback position last year. Do we expect him to be able to repeat that performance and lead this Jags offense once again to another big season?
I think there's potential. I think the only thing that's worrying me is with the use of how much he was running the football last year. Because again, he career high in rushing touchdowns. He had 38 total touchdowns last year, which is again career high for him. Over 4,000 passing yards. I My biggest worry for him is that I think that this team takes a step back overall. And again, the injury worry I think is the big thing because of how much he's being used and consistently being used. Playing 17 games, I mean, he's only missed, I think, 7 games over 5 years so far. So, like, he's been pretty durable, but he also hasn't been running as much. I believe last year was a career high in rushing attempts for him and rushing yards. So, I I'm a little bit worried right now. I don't hate it. I'll buy into it right now, but I do, especially for the value that you can get him at later in like the middle of the draft. I don't hate it. Um, but right now, I can't give you a definitive yes or no.
Yeah, I actually, I'm with you. He's more like you're not. He's a guy that you're not going to think about drafting. However, there are always going to be the 4 or 5 definitive dudes you draft in fantasy. He's at least at the beginning of the next list, right? We always want to make sure you grab your guys you know are going to be able to run the ball. Uh, and obviously his numbers were spiked last year due to rushing touchdowns, but you can't always expect that to be the case. Lawrence, I think, is a guy that is worth having right around that aspect. But I do want to talk about his receiver room, and that's where we go next. Because boy, oh boy, does he have some options. Obviously, last year was a disappointment for Brian Thomas. We're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about this whole wide receiver room. Parker Washington had a huge year. They trade for Jacoby Myers. Where do we want to go? Where do you want to go, Don, to start with this wideout room? Do you trust certain guys more than others? Do you think all three of these guys are worthy of having on your not on the same? I mean, obviously, just in general, but worth having on your roster. Where do you want to start with the Jags wide receiver room?
Um, I think I think Brian Thomas. I think I want to start it because I the biggest thing last year that we were talking about, right? And why he was struggling was because of Shane Waldron. And I know that Shane's back this year, I believe. Right? Correct?
That I'm not totally sure.
Yes, he's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh Assistant head coach and passing game coordinator. Yeah, that's the big thing. But I think the offensive coordinator, um, Udinsky definitely didn't help his case with him. So I'm kind of curious to see what Brian Thomas's um, routes look like. What kind of what his route tree basically is, and also too, don't forget, like a down uniform, he is still 91 targets. He didn't bring in a bunch of these balls last year, finishing 48. So I think getting him at a buy low spot here, where you can get him probably as like your wide receiver 3, probably your first wide receiver on your bench, I think is incredible. So I like Brian Thomas. I like Parker Washington. Jacoby Myers is going to get a ton of targets, but he never finishes within the top 25. So I just personally wouldn't take him. I think Brian Thomas and Parker Washington have the wide receiver 20 upside, at least.
I agree with you here
And you can get them
100%.
later.
I love the Parker Washington. I think he could have a huge season akin to what he did last year. It took a while for him to really kind of become a constant force in their offense. Um, just multiple weeks where he wasn't getting many targets, and then the second half of the season he started to kind of come along, especially late in the year. He's a guy that I feel is going to be a top 20 player. Brian Thomas had one of the weirdest seasons ever. As a rookie, it was like, okay, this guy's already a top 10 guy. The next dude from LSU, and then all of a sudden he drops his catches in half and has 500 less yards, and it was a disastrous year for him. I believe that for Brian Thomas, I think that he'll have a little bit of a bounce back. I want to believe that because he's such a good talent, and last year was such a weird season. I love the and I think with Myers as well. It's Myers is going to be more touchdown dependent. I think Myers could be just kind of a red zone guy for them, which at the time last year, especially when Brian Thomas was a nightmare, they needed a guy like Myers. So, but Thomas and Washington are the guys that I'm riding with, like you are, especially Washington. I definitely like his upside as a top 20 guy. Last thing for the Jags, the biggest hole in this offense is the running back position. Obviously, last year Travis Etienne or Travis Etienne, depending on how far south in Louisiana you live, he was the main guy for them. He goes now to the Saints, but now it is kind of up in the air on what you're going to do. They go and get Chris Rodriguez. He's probably going to be their backup. Expect Facial Tootin to be their starting running back. Position they didn't really address in the offseason. Where do you want to start here, Don? With a very weird running back room, do you think that Tootin is must have? Like, he can be a late rounder, or is this just a position this year you want to stay away from at the beginning of the season and just kind of let it play out?
I don't like this at all because where he's going as like a top 60 fantasy running back, and that's not Tootin at all. Like, also, you got to remember, right? They have 300 touches to replace with Travis Etienne or A-Chain, depending on how far south you are. I think that's going to be our joke for the rest of the year whenever we talk about Travis Etienne. But
Yes,
I just,
yes, our
I,
first one.
I'm the guy where I love the Chris Rodriguez move that they made. I think Chris Rodriguez by week like 6 will be getting 60 to 65% of snap share. I, I'm not buying Tootin, especially getting him where you're getting him. Like, I have to go within, depending on where you're drafting in 10 or 12, as like anywhere between a 5th and a 7th round pick on him for a guy that's proven. I'm all set. Like, there's no James Robinson in him. Like, I don't trust Tootin. And where Liam Cohen's offense is, Trevor Lawrence is going to take a lot of the rushing potential away from him, I think.
I need to get a sticky note board up here. One for our jokes for the show, and one for your predictions. I would have just put two up there. Sticking with the Travis Etienne joke, or the Etienne A-Chain joke, and the other one, Chris Rodriguez by week 6, will be starting the running back one in Jacksonville. I like it. Let's just try to remember that in our brains for the future. All right, halfway home. Let's move on. Next up, it is the Tennessee Titans. Uh, some new bodies coming in, pretty much an entirely new wide receiver room, new coach, new head coach, new offensive coordinator Rob Saleh in. Bobby Saleh comes in with his 19 children. Can any of them play on the line of scrimmage? Because God knows they need it. Uh, he is the new head coach, and they go and get Brian Daboll as the offensive coordinator. Oh, hum diddly dee. Let's start with this wide receiver room where they got a lot of new bodies. Let's start where the youngest, the brand new wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans, top draft pick Carnell Tate. I'm gonna just easily pitch you a question here, Don. How high are you on Carnell Tate coming into this season?
Oh, I'm very high on Carnell Tate coming into the season. I look at it like this, right? So I look at like rookies, like within like the last few years, right? Like you think of like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, all guys that have averaged like between 260 and 300 fantasy points in the rookie year. Um, I'm thinking he's doing it. I like him. I think also too when you look at like And this is the big thing for me. Last year, if you look at Tedder McMillan, right? A lot of guys were iffy on him if he would transition, see how he would do with a quarterback like Bryce Young. You know, Bryce Young was in his second
Coming
season
into his
last.
second season, yeah.
He was coming into his second season. They draft for McMillan in the first round. He finishes as a wide receiver 16 with over
Sorry, Young
122.
Bryce Young was coming into his third season last
Okay,
year.
third season. So 7 touchdowns, 70 catches, over 1,000 yards. I think those are easy numbers for Carnell. And I think the biggest thing that no one's talking about is people look at Carnell and like, oh, well, he wasn't like an alpha wide receiver one in college. Yes, because every time that he played, he had a legit number one receiver on the other side. And Ohio State's very good at this because the same thing happened to JSN. People don't remember JSN in college had was behind Marvin Harrison Jr., who was very good. He was behind Chris Olave, who was very good. He was never the guy besides one game in the Rose Bowl. And look at how he is producing in the NFL. Ohio State and LSU are the two factor receivers in the NFL right now. Trust me when I tell you this. Carnell Tate is a must-have. I'm drafting him as my flex wide receiver 2. It doesn't matter. I don't care. Carnell Tate will be mine by the 5th round in every single draft that I have.
Now, do you have the? I agree with you that I think Tate is. I much rather would draft Tate on this team than Wandale Robinson. However, Wandale Robinson has. You got to think that was a Brian Daboll signing, right? Like Daboll's
Mm-hmm.
pounding the table. Like this is a guy that I've had. This is a guy that I know can be a solid pro. I think that's what Wandale Robinson is a solid professional football player. I agree with you. Like, if there's anybody on this team that I'm going out and I'm like, gotta have, no whammies, but give me more. Let's get all the stock here. It's Carnell Tate. Is there anything with like Wandale where it's like, okay, I actually think that if I can draft this guy at some point, you're not drafting Wandale Robinson to be a top 10 player, a top 10 receiver, but just like a wide receiver to a flex option. Is there anything in that with him, or is this more of like I'm expecting Carnell Tate to have this massive year, and then Wandale will just kind of be a little bit of a lesser version of what he's been in, like when he was in New York, which granted he was a targets and reception machine on the Giants.
But the thing is, I think that's what Wandale's going to be, which I think boosts Carnell Tate's stock. If you remember, right, Wandale in Malik Neighbors' rookie year, right? Wandale had 140 targets Malik Neighbors' rookie year. 140. And Malik Neighbors still put up numbers like that. Wandale Robinson helped Malik Neighbors have a great rookie year. He's going to do the same thing with Carnell Tate. That's my basis off of it. Wandale Robinson is the greatest wide receiver 2 on a team because what he does as a target merchant makes defenses have to key in on him and make sure that, okay, we need to make sure that we can control him. And then what happens is Carnell Tate, next thing you know, he's got 10 catches for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like that's the type of thing that Wandale Robinson can help a team do. And with this young quarterback who's going to rely on his rookie a little bit more, I like it. Wandale's going to be great fantasy wise. I don't think he'll finish as top 15 like he did last year, but I do think 100 plus targets is within the realm of possibilities for him. And I think he's a good complement for Carnell Tate, which is what they need.
So does this mean that the Tennessee Titans, we're 3 teams into our divisional preview, our team by team preview, are the Tennessee Titans our first Rainbow Road team of the 2026-27 NFL season, where it's just points everywhere, baby.
I'm praying, man. I'm praying that Tennessee is that.
It might all come down to Cam Ward, right? And I don't think either one of us are going to sit here and say Cam Ward is a guy we would draft as a fantasy quarterback, but I don't think Cam Ward's a bad player. I also don't think he's a good player right now. Is it just going to be as simple as can this guy deliver and be a legitimate pro?
So can we the Bryce Young again? I wouldn't draft Bryce Young with a 10-foot pole. But Bryce Young and Cam Ward kind of on the same thing. Number 1 overall picks, kind of rookie year didn't pan out too well, and the next thing you know, they take that big leap that second or third year. For for Cam, it's going to be year two. For Bryce, it was year three. So seeing that, and also too, again, just this is the quarterback we're relying on Cam Ward for Carnell Tate. This was the same people that were relying on Bryce Young for Tedero McMillan last year, drafting him around the same time frame. That's just my comparison on where I think Carnell Tate is this year.
No, I think that's a good point. And this team still has Calvin Ridley, or this team got or has Calvin Ridley, who had a wonky season a year ago before bowing out. They got yeah, like Iomanor, Chimeri Dike. So like this team has a lot of guys. We've mentioned this wide receiver room, obviously that we really like what their two new options can bring. Let's talk about the running back room. Tony Pollard's a guy who's been, I don't know, polarizing is the right word, but he has a breakout year, and then everybody the next year, Tony Pollard's going top 5 in drafts. I also would know because I would take him, and I hated myself for it. Uh, and now Tony Pollard is just kind of another one of those. He's a pro. He is a guy that it's not going to finish top 10, top 15, but every week he's going to be steady. He had last year. Where did he finish last year in running back rankings? Please tell me, Don. I'm sure you got this pulled up somewhere.
Top 25. He's been top 25 for the last 4 years. He's rushed for over 1,000 yards in the last 4 years.
And last year, he had 3 100-yard games. They were all in a row. One of them was against the Cleveland Browns. Shout out to the Cleveland Browns. One of them was against the San Francisco 49ers, who had no NFL caliber defenders on their team. And then another was against the Kansas City Chiefs in December, who basically at that time were fielding a CFL roster. Outside of that, he had one game over 90 yards and one game over 80 yards. Everything else, rushing wise, is somewhere between the high 40s and the mid 60s. However, this guy still turns up and he ends up being he'll get 25 to 40 catches a year. He'll get maybe a couple hundred yards receiving with a few more touchdowns. Tony Pollard continuously finds ways to be a high level fantasy, not a high level fantasy option, but boy, oh boy, if there's worse guys you can have as your running back two or a flex in a dire situation, that is for sure.
What's the question there?
My question, I guess, the question I would have here is: do you follow on that? Do you agree? Do you think that Pollard is set to have another season where he is a solid fantasy option? Maybe he can build a little and give a little more.
Well, I think the biggest thing is last year was the Titans' offensive line was abysmal, right? I think they fixed it a little bit this year. However, I think the big thing here is, right, when you look in years past at who Tony Pollard has behind him, like the Rico Dowdles of the world was good for him because it helped open up the playing field. Right now, I think there's a guy that we kind of touched the base on a little bit as a rookie running back, but like I think again this guy potentially has the chance to overtake Tony Pollard's workload consistently, and also too, when you look at his stats from a year ago, you know, the first 4 weeks he played in over 80% of the snaps. After that, no higher than 73%. And that was the week after. And after that, it was a 60-40 split. So with that, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to touch Tony Pollard this year, right now, because, and Joe's going to foam at the mouth when I say this, I'm going to be waiting and collecting all of my fab money for the week 4 spike of Nick Singleton. That's going to be when we cook, Joseph. Because this is going to happen. They play the Jets week 1. Tony Pollard will play all right. Nick Singleton might get 4 or 5 carries. They play Philly. Tony Pollard will struggle. They play the Giants. I'm going to tell you right now, Nick Singleton is going to end up with like 15 carries for 100 plus yards and a touchdown in that game. And I'm going to the moon because then he's going to start getting a boatload of work, and Tony Pollard is going to be in the rearview mirror for the Tennessee Titans. And also, too, Tony Pollard's almost 30 years old. That's where the running backs start usually taking a dip unless you're like this elite level running back. So I'm going to stay away from Tony P. I'm going to wait. And I'm telling you now, calling my shot July 7th, episode 2, week 4, waiver wire. Nick Singleton's going to have all of my fab.
You're just going to be you're going to be dropping Substack articles why Nick Singleton is primed to break out. Nick Singleton, after back-to-back 20-point weeks in the middle of October, getting us through the dog days. Gotta love it. Got to love it. Last up, the Houston Texans. Boy, oh boy, what a team. If we were doing X's and O's, you and I could sit here and talk about their defense for 2 hours, and it would just be a great episode. But we're not. We're talking fantasy football, folks. Let's get after it. Nico Collins had after being a no doubt bona fide, legitimate top tier supernova threat a couple years or 2 years ago. Last year, he came into the season, and he had a fantastic start to the year. And then his season hit a bit of a roadblock when he missed a few games because last season due to an injury for a little while. This year for Collins, still finished, or I believe his injury was 2 years ago. My apologies. Had 71 catches last year, 6 touchdowns, 1,100 yards for Nico Collins in an offense that has had some moments of despair, which we will continuously talk about here with their quarterback in a bit. Nico Collins, though, do you think he can return to a top 10 fantasy wide receiver position, Don? Do you think he is worth taking in that spot?
I mean, I just think there's going to be receivers that have better years than him, and that's okay. I just think that I can't get behind taking a guy whose career high in receptions is 80, where I'm taking him. Do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of where my thing is. Like if I'm drafting a top 10 fantasy wide receiver, I need guys that are like consistently over 100 catches every year. The target share is there. Don't get me wrong. He's had 99 plus in the last 3 seasons with CJ Stroud as his quarterback. Um, he finished his wide receiver rate last year, and I get it. However, I also think that their rushing attack was fucking putrid last year. And I think it got a lot better this year, which I think is going to help in a little bit of the dip for them. But I'm going to tell you right now, he showed flashes last year. I would even wait later on, and I'm sorry, I'm taking Jaden Higgins as my bench wide receiver. You know, I know that once the season progressed, like he was starting to get on the field more. Um, we started in the playoffs where he was getting targeted more. Um, and it's a guy, big play demon that Jaden Higgins can be, and I think you kind of need that as like a backup, just because again you need a spot start. Jaden Higgins could be a guy where you can fill in right away. My biggest thing is if this guy is fully healthy 100%, and we will never know um, until we see him back on the football field. But if Tank Dell can somehow manage his way back on the football field, I'm going to tell you right now, Nico Collins' numbers are going way down. So there's a lot of variables here. I don't trust him at that price. So I'm going to say no.
Dell, who in his 2 actual full seasons, well, not or seasons where he got on the field, uh, played 11 games, had 47 catches. Then the year after, 14 games, 51 catches. So, yeah, more options potentially could lower Collins's fantasy ceiling. That big year or 2 years ago when he started with a good year, and then I said I thought he was going to win Offensive Player of the Year. That's when he got hurt earlier in the season, missed a month, and then came back and had a good year. Last year, he had a good season, but it was never just a dominant year or dominant moments for him. It was just kind of there, being a top receiver on a good team instead of just, oh, I feel like this guy is more than that,
And
which it
also,
looked like he was primed to be 2 seasons ago.
also very touchdown dependent. He needs he needs a touchdown in order to get there.
We mentioned the running game and how last year it stunk, which it did. So they go out and get David Montgomery, which now I build the question to you: are we in or out on the potential committee backfield of David Montgomery and Woody Marks?
I'm in on David Montgomery. I'm out on the committee because they said that they want to use Woody Marks more. Why? You saw the sample size last year. It wasn't it. And I know that, again, I love going about it, but the rookie running backs, in year two, you take that big thing. If that was the case, they wouldn't have gone out inside David Montgomery to be their bell cow. And again, David Montgomery is a guy who was once upon a time a top five fantasy running back one season where he had a career high 247 touches and over 1,000 yards. So listen, it's there. He has the potential, man. The sky's the limit for him. He's been a top 30 fantasy running back every single season. He's been a top 20-ish running back in four out of his last 6 seasons. The potential's there. I think the O line is better than it was last year. It's not banked up right now. I'm trusting David Montgomery. I'm not buying into this bullshit committee that um, D'Amico Ryan's just trying to make you buy into.
Yeah, and as a number one option, we've seen what he can do as a true guy. I think Marks will still be a player that gets some moments, but I think Montgomery's going to be the man, and I loved that move for Houston. Lastly, for them, it's CJ Stroud. It's what this team is going to potentially revolve on depending on their actual Super Bowl window. But as a fantasy quarterback, can CJ Stroud in this season, I believe his fourth year after a really 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 rough year last year and a rough end to it, where we were wondering at halftime if CJ Stroud was going to get benched in a playoff game for Davis Mills. Can CJ Stroud bounce back and be a potential top 10 fantasy quarterback?
I think he's got potential, man. I think the receiver room is better. I think the offensive line is better. I think that was a big part of it last year. And also, like, he struggled to get over 3,000 passing yards last year. I think he's going to go way over that. He's got a top 12 fantasy quarterback from his rookie year. It's been kind of downhill because of the inconsistency, guys getting hurt and stuff like that, and I get it. But I do think that he can fit into this offense. I do think that there's potential that he can get up there. Now, am I going to draft him like that? No. I will take CJ Stroud as my backup quarterback 9 times out of 10 for a spot start, and that's fine. I just think that there's potential within the organization and within this offensive scheme that CJ Stroud can potentially have a top 10 year.
His rookie season, when he broke out 4,100 yards, he was fantastic. I thought he was just a different version of Joe Burrow, the way he played and was so smooth. And then the year after, his second year is kind of was like, oh my God, the shell shock of him in a sense being broken. He got sacked 52 times, had a 46 and a half QBR. He's got 3,700 yards, and then this season he has a few games where he misses, finishes with just over 3,000 yards. The interceptions has been what spiked. He was 23-5 as a rookie, 20-12 as a sophomore, and then last year in his third season, 19-8 in 14 games. So he threw 12 and 17 games his second year, and then he threw 8 and 14 games as a third year player. This, you have to believe that there's still something there. That it's not. I don't think the rookie year was a fluke. I think there's a lot of stuff. His decision making is what the issue, like his composure has been the biggest thing. So I agree with you on the potential. The question is going to be is can he actually just kind of keep his cool for more than 5 minutes? And will that has to allow him to be the player that we think he can be. Otherwise, uh, we're all going to be sitting here honey dicked by this team for another season with Stroud at the helm. Okay. Outside of that, we have landed the plane here on the Houston Texans, excuse me, the AFC South as a whole. Colts, Jags, Titans, and Texans down. Don, I think we did well, my friend.
Yeah, again, very excited for the rest of the season. A lot of content coming your way from us. Make sure if you guys aren't following us, make sure you guys are following us on Twitter at FF Underbosses. Make sure you're following Joe at Joe the Show QCSN, as you can see on the bottom of the screen. Make sure you're following myself at CJones1212. Road to 2K followers. in the work. We got some goals that we want to set. But again, if you guys have any sort of fantasy football questions, make sure you guys are DMing us on Twitter. We will be able to answer it to you. And guys, please do us a favor. Like, subscribe, do what you need to do. Plenty of content coming here. Make sure you're checking out the Substack. Make sure you're checking out everything, because I'll tell you right now, the month of August, we will have team by team preview every single day. You're not gonna want to miss it. We'll do our rankings later in August, where we'll kind of just give you our top guys at each position, our buy low, sell high, um, trade targets potentially once we get into season, sleepers that we like going into the year. Obviously, everybody needs a good tight end. Uh, I'll tell you right now, Joe is very good at picking out random tight ends that will just pop off for whatever reason. It's just what he's good at. It's what he does. But we have a lot of things in the archive here. Only episode 2. The sky's the limit for us, but we can't do it without you. So please make sure you guys are helping us out.
Thank you guys so much for watching. For Don and myself, we will see you guys next time. With our schedule right now, we're going to keep ripping out videos. For the month of July, will be one a week. As we get through into August, when we'll probably start upping the content a bit as we continue with divisional previews and our rankings as we get into some writing as well. So thank you guys again. We will see y'all next week. This has been Fantasy Underbosses, episode 2 here on the Golden Ignorance Podcast Network. We will see you guys next time. Until then, thank you for watching. We're out, y'all. Peace.